Good evening and welcome to Thursday Night Life with Chef Brackman. How are you doing? Have you had a good week? So tonight's topic is grooming is a process, not an accident, part 2. And this is a continuation from last week where we discussed how communities can unconsciously participate in grooming. Hello, welcome. So last week we talked about some of the ways that the society can participate in grooming, which is gossiping about children, sexualizing children, allowing unsupervised access to children, and just generally the community patterns like protection. Protection of predators because of shame or, just the way they are. They shame a child, they silence a child, and they protect the perpetrators. So basically, that's what we discussed last week. So last week, I was laying the groundwork. This week, I will be discussing it from the perspective of how it happened to me. As I've told some of you, my family moved to Bonny Island when I was 13 years old. And my father was working in a company on the island as a doctor. And it was a young company with a lot of young men. Most of them are married, but a lot of young wives as well. A few people were my father's age mates. So I was one of the oldest staff children. So, and I was kind of tall and big for my age. So I kind of stuck out. So how did it happen? Predators create a sexual rumor. So first of all, they create a rumor, then they test how the community responds to it, marking you sexually available, signaling to others that you're unprotected, and trying to shame and isolate you. So basically, when they carry story about you, they watch. If someone say, no, it's not true, it's not possible. Or someone say, tell me more, and sharing. So basically, this is how it was happening. And I didn't even know that anything was amiss till slowly I started to notice that the children that I used to play with were making all kinds of excuses not to hang out with me. And I think it started from some of the more religious families. So they will go to their fellowship, they will discuss me, then they will advise their children not to hang out with me and that kind of thing. But there was a particular guy, I think there was a man, he was just always calling me, always calling my phone, always trying to talk to me. And I was really young. And then at some point when it wasn't working out for him, I think it was him, I could be wrong, but a letter arrived at our door. It was in a white envelope. It was addressed to my father. And so my father read it. He was quite upset by the letter. So he called me to his room to read the letter. The letter wrote something about your daughter is getting wayward, all the men in the compound are chasing her, and to maintain your reputation as the good doctor that everybody knows you as, you need to do something about it, blah, blah, blah. So, hey, uncle. So my dad had asked me, do you know who wrote this letter? I thought I had a suspicion, but I just didn't want to get into it. So I was like, no. He now said that you need to be careful. And I don't want to get more letters like this. And I don't want your mom to hear about this because she won't like it. So that's how we just left off with that letter. But I didn't know that that was just the beginning of many other things to come, right? So rumors are definitely grooming tools. Number 2, women are sometimes weaponized. So Bonny Island, there was this company, there were a few companies on Bonny Island, but the company that I'm talking about is one of the best companies, best paying companies in the country. So the community was, the compound was very nice, uninterrupted power supply, all the sports facilities, all the entertainment, all these parties. So people were, you live differently in other parts of Nigeria and you come into somewhere that is also organized and you want to stay there. So for a new wife, anything that would threaten their security, they would want to squash. So even if it's a child. So wives feel threatened, insecure, or conditioned to protect their young marriages more than a child's safety. So when this is happening, when these rumors start, it's no longer about you being a child. They forget that. It's just rumors. It's just vicious. It's about to isolate, shame you, and just diminish you. So in that point, people don't know better. And the people who help to carry these rumors, for example, like I had a family friend, one of these young people who liked my father. So they were always kind of around in our house. But he was always looking at me. After a while of people trying to groom you, you start to know the look of interest. You start to notice things. So he was always looking at me, but some people are very patient. So they take a year, or 2 years. And because I was in boarding school, I was in and out. So I would come home on holiday, then I'll go back to school for 6 weeks. I come back for 1 week for midterm break, go for 6 weeks, come back for a long holiday. So there was a cycle. I was not always on boarding. So it's always in those my holidays that there's always something happening. So at some point, this man got engaged and he brought his girlfriend or his fiance to show my parents, and he kept looking. And of course, young girl, whatever. So if you're with your partner and he's looking somewhere, you will follow his eyes, right? So all of a sudden, a lady who was kind of friendly was now cold. So imagine she will now go and ask someone, this Jennifer girl, and that one will now sit down and say, hey, she's a husband snatcher. She's this. So really? And all of a sudden, they've created the packet. And then the next new wife that comes, they will tell her, beware of this girl. So they form gossip groups. They warn others about the girl. They bully and shame the girl. And then they reinforce the lie. And then it's just a cycle that people who don't know you are talking about you. And you're wondering what the hell is going on. They become unpaid security for the predators because the predators are out there. I mean, where do you get off saying that a 13-year-old is trying to snatch your husband? And you leave the husband because you like the money. You like the security. You like this new life. So all of a sudden, like, can you imagine? And even when I moved back to Bonnie recently, as an adult, I had 3 nannies. And women were always coming up to me to warn me, like, your nannies, their dresses are tight. Your nanny, that one with big bum bum is rude. That one with this thing is this. They were so insecure and they kept trying to get me, won't you fire one? Won't you fire two? Now, wow, are you not worried about your husband? And one day I told one lady, if I ever have to worry about my husband and my domestic staff, then what am I doing there? So the same aggression they take out on domestic staff, they take out on staff children, they take out on contract staff, they take out on even fellow staff who are single. So it gets to a point that women are weaponized to bully anybody who is not attached to a man. So, and also when you have been targeted, when you have been put in a box, that is the story that follows you. And then if another child starts hanging out with you, they start trying to see what can stick on that child. And there's a story I remember. So, and even at that point, people were still trying to come to my school. Grown adults will be like, if I come to Owerri, can I take you out of school? I'm like, no, I'm in boarding school. And we're like, no, I can handle the security. I'll take you out. I'm like, no, really, I will not leave school. But there was a young girl who started hanging out with me. She liked me, but she was much younger than me. And maybe because she was hanging out with me, another young man now decided to go after her. And this girl was young and really vulnerable. When this man started to talk to her, she didn't tell me. I knew nothing. I was not involved at all. And then at some point, the man, I don't know where they went. I was not involved in the story at all until they involved me. So one night, I don't know what happened, but he kissed her. So she ran to my house crying. Why would she do this? I was like, just avoid him. The kiss will not do anything to you. Just avoid this human being. Something like that. I thought it had ended. Then I think the next day there was a child dedication. And I think that man is a brother of one of the spouses. So he was working as a contract staff and living with the sister's family or something. So there was a child dedication and she was still bothered by the kiss. So she went to that place where other women were and started crying. She didn't want to tell her mother because her mother would have been upset, maybe beat her or whatever. So she went there and started crying about this case. They consoled her, they talked, but somehow they decided it's my fault. That if she wasn't hanging out with me, that she would not have been seen, blah, blah, blah. So somehow they turned it around. How do I know this? Because one of the nannies that was in that kitchen when all these women were dissecting me told me blow by blow who said what. I was not there. I was not involved. All of a sudden, it became like when I've reflected on it as an adult now, like why would they have involved me? Then I started to remember things that might have contributed. So one of those women had, I think, gone abroad to have a baby or something. And I think that there was one of her siblings was in the compound doing IT and we were friends. So I used to go to their house a lot. So maybe someone had seen me go in and out of that house and knowing fully well that she was not in town, they would have assumed that I was seeing her husband as the sibling who was doing IT is not very social. So it's not someone you will see outside. But I was only ever in that house, like working hours, and I was always gone before the man of the house ever came home. So if this thing was told her, then maybe I already had a target. So when this girl had come in crying, it would have triggered something. But all of a sudden, it went nuts, right? And this kind of things just kept happening. Like stories that when they start, you're like, what's going on? Where is it coming from? But then the isolation started full force. Like isolation is not a side effect, it's a strategy. There were these kids too. They were also older staff children. I used to hang out with them. I used to go to their house. We used to play. Then one day, I dressed up, arrived at their house, pressed the doorbell. They came to the door with panic that I have to go. Their father is home and their father cannot see me. That was the last time I ever went to their house, but since when? And their father, by the way, is like an older, mature man in the community. When he sees me, he greets me well. So why are those so scared that he will see them with me? I left. I didn't complain. Then another one of my friends, she came to my house. I've told this story before on my blog. She came to my house. I offered her food. She ate my food. After eating, then she now complained, I always cook with so much garlic and ginger that her mother will notice she has visited me because her mother doesn't cook with garlic and ginger. And I'm like, why would it be a problem to your mother if you ate my food? We're family friends. We know each other. And then maybe it just fell out of her mouth. She now said her mom said she should stop visiting me because I'm bad influence on her. Like, if it was someone else, I would have taken it in my stride as I had taken every other thing that had been thrown at me. But that woman, and we had been doing family friend and all of that. In fact, I started heading to her house. She was begging me. I said, Lila, I got to her house. I rang the doorbell. I asked the mother, Madam, this is what I'm hearing. Did you or did you not? She was trying to go around. I said, no, did you tell your daughter that I'm bad influence? She said, this is not how she meant it. She brought this wooden spoon they used to turn Gary. She was beating the girl. No, it's not how I said, what did you mean? We're family friends. You claim I'm your daughter. You didn't talk to me. You didn't talk to my parents. You banned your daughter from hanging out with me. I'm bad influence. So she was apologizing. She was saying, okay, I left her and went home. Like years later, she met me. She still apologized again. But, sometimes there's a kind of damage you do to a child. I didn't realize. I knew that, like when I look back now, I know I went through stress. But then I didn't understand what stress was, the stress response, the effect on health. But I know that I went through stress. I went through trauma that some of them I started to understand as an adult. So a lonely child is easier to control. A child with a ruined reputation won't be believed, and a bullied child won't ask for help. They stop asking for help. And you might ask how I used to hear some of the things they were saying about me, because adults were telling me. And I was so grateful to the people who were telling me stuff because I thought they were my friends. But when I have thought about it as an adult, it was a different kind of exploitation because I was so grateful they believed me. I was so grateful that they didn't accept the rumors. So I used to cook for them, clean for them, babysit for them. A lot of the things I used to do in my own house anyway, like, I just wanted them to see me as a good person, as a hardworking person, as a dependable person. So if they had child education, if they had a birthday party, I would arrive. If they give me beans to wash for moi moi, I would wash it. Even if they cook 100 eggs for moi moi and salads, I will peel it. I will share food at the party. I will share drinks. I will stay back and wash pots. So, and then they will tell me everything they're hearing. They will tell me I should not mind them. And for that, I was trying to earn that protection, trying to earn that trust that someone believes that I'm not out here trying to snatch husbands at 13, at 14. So I was just busy, like doing unpaid work. That's what it was, because all those things that I thought, most of those things that I thought were friendships, as an adult, I'm now looking at where are the friends? What happened? But when people pulled their children back, like when I couldn't hang out with the children, I started hanging out with adults. So I would go to the gym, I would go to the pool, I would go to the sports hall and do other activities. So somehow, from a very young age, I started hanging out with adults, and it had a good and bad side because I learned a lot. But yeah, I should have had the privilege also to make friends with people my age, but I didn't have it. So all the things they were calling attention wasn't necessarily attention. It was violence. People think abuse is only physical or sexual. No. Abuse can be psychological. It can be social abuse. It's reputational exploitation, emotional harm, and grooming. So there's a lot that goes into this thing, and it's also damaging. So basically, just to summarize some of the groundwork. So you're marked, you're isolated, and you're silenced. And then the children start exhibiting survival behavior. So survival behavior, children in hostile environments, often you overperform, you people please as a chronic people pleaser in recovery. I can tell you that, like, once someone is just showing you small kindness, there's nothing you will not do. There's nowhere you will not go. It doesn't matter the time. You just want to hold on to the kindness that you're receiving. You serve adults, you accept unfair treatment, you cling to anyone showing you kindness. And sometimes the effects of this grooming, of this isolation early in life can follow you till much later. That's why there are some adults that if they tell you what they've gone through in a relationship, and I hear people say, why didn't they leave? Why did they accept it? Sometimes you need to know where they're coming from. You need to see the full picture, full trajectory. So sometimes it gets to a point that you come to self-realization. You start to drop some of the things. And those people who put you in that position will start shouting, you've changed. You've become rude. You've done this. You've done that. But that's the process. Predators and unsafe adults exploit lonely children. So they might not be the abusers themselves, but they have other ways to exploit you, like using you to do work and all those kind of things. Then there was a divide and conquer mechanism going on, the dynamic. So there were multiple groups with multiple interests that were at you at the same time. So you're really, really confused. So there's wives and girlfriends who are accusing you of all kinds of things. The hostile younger women, there's the rejected men. So all the people you're saying no to. And sometimes it's so silly that a man will wake up, maybe he's talking to you on the road. So someone else will see him and say, how far? And say, yeah, he will claim he has been successful. And then the person he told is a married man. That one will go home and tell his wife, guess what? This person and that doctor's daughter. Now, wow, the wife will like, huh? And the wife is friends with that one's wife. So this is just a vicious circle Do not gossip about children. Stop it wherever you can. And if you want to talk about it, you should be talking about it to the right people, the parents of the child, the authorities, someone that can help with something, not just what you call gist, but it's very damaging. And then there were gossip networks. And the way Bonnie was, the compound that I lived in, if you come outside, you will not see anybody, but everybody knows where you have been. People are looking through their windows. We have these phones that you have phone number extensions. So people are calling people. Gist is moving. Before you can even blink, gist is moving. It was just the way things were set up. And then silencing is the last nail on the coffin. When a child stops trusting their voice, speaking up makes things worse, because they say, "Well, you hear," you say, "Yeah, but this." Anything you're saying against an adult as a child is very difficult, right? No one believes you. Kindness must be earned. Protection is conditioned. Adults' feeling matter more than a child's safety. So every time they're covering the adults, people are covering their husbands, they're covering their brothers that came for, whatever, but anything but the child. So the child will adapt. She stays quiet, smiles, serves, minimizes harms, becomes mature. You now get the stamp mature for your age. So adults praise survival response without seeing the pain behind it. So, all of a sudden you become mature for your age, because they send you on errands, you go, you do as they say, just so that they can stop. And then you're on that. Once you finally get to that mature for your age, you know that the work is done. So I'm going to start telling a few stories just so that we can follow maybe a few incidents point to point, because some of these stories are some of the things they try to use and hold me chained. Each time I want to do something, get a job, step out, do something big, they'll not say, "You don't know her story. You don't know." So someone will now approach me and tell me, "I've heard all about you." But, today I was looking on social media and there was this lady, Giselle, the one that the husband was drugging and molesting with a bunch of people. And she's speaking out and speaking out big. And today she said something profound, that we're going to put shame on the other side. So a child that was molested, that was groomed, that was harassed should not be the one living in shame, the one that are still using it to bully. No, we're going to put shame where it belongs, on the other side, to the adults who should have known better. So today we're putting shame on the other side. So my first story, when I was between 14 and 15, I know I was in Form 4, which was like 2000 to 2001. Form 4 is the fourth year in high school. So when I was in Form 4, on the holiday, I went with my father to a child dedication in the compound where we lived on Bonnie. And there was, their religion was a bit different from what I was used to. They went to Ekanka. It was the first time I ever heard about Ekanka or ever saw them worship. There was a bowl of water, there was candles, and there was flowers. And at some point, I went to my father. It was only me and my dad that went to that child education. And at some point, everybody had to close their eyes and they needed to sing to the Holy Spirit, but hate you, they needed to sing it. And all eyes were closed, and it was very deep, very profound. At some point, my curiosity got better of me. So I opened my eye. I needed to see, the people making these noises, what they were feeling. So when I opened my eye, I looked across the hall, and there was an Indian man behind the buffet stand, an Indian chef behind the buffet stand. His eyes were open. So he smiled at me and winked. And I winked back. And in my mind, that winking was just like, this is new. What do you think, kind of? But of course, he couldn't talk to me because I was with my father. So also when I got to the buffet, eventually when we ate, he was also smiling at me. But that's it. We didn't talk to each other at all. So imagine that the next day, the house extension in my home rings. And it was him. He called my house and asked to speak to Jennifer. So obviously, someone gave him the info. Maybe he recognized my father because my father is a doctor and used to inspect the canteen. He was a chef in one of the canteens. So he would know my father because he was on the occupational health team that used to inspect. But that he now knew my name, which I never gave, which means obviously he asked someone, what is the doctor's daughter, what's her name? What's her situation? So someone, some adult somewhere that should have known better would have been like, oh, the mother doesn't live here. The father works these hours. It's always her and her siblings. So he called and he reminded me where I saw him. And then he told me he was Indian. And you people know me. I have this Indian madness. I was raised on Indian movies. So somehow I told him all the Indian movies I'd seen. So we're chatting. This was the beginning of this friendship that would finally cause me a lot of problems because to me, nobody else was talking to me. I was only hanging out with adults. All the staff children, I had been isolated from them at this point, and I needed friends. So he will call my extension. We'll talk. At the time, I didn't think anything was wrong, and I thought it was innocent. Even as an adult, at some point, I still thought it was innocent. But now that I have reflected and I know a lot more about how grooming works, it wasn't. It shouldn't have happened. It was inappropriate because at some point into this talking endlessly on the phone, like each time had a time off, he will call me, we'll talk. Then it now graduated to me going to their house. So he was Indian. His boss was Lebanese. There was another top Lebanese chef and another guy from Bangladesh. So 4 of them shared a house, a big house near the hospital. So I would sometimes walk over there because sometimes he'll do morning shift and he'll come like lunchtime. Then we'll sit down, chat for an hour or two. I leave, he will sleep so that he'll be fresh for night shift or whatever. So sometimes I'm there. One of the other 3 guys are coming in. They had a lot of Nigerian chefs and others working for them, but 4 of them were the main top chefs from that company. And 4 of them lived in that house and they had rotations. So we'll just sit on the couch, play card games, watch TV, talk. So to me, it was innocent enough. He wasn't asking anything of me. But I didn't realize how many people were watching me go in and out of that house and them making different permutations of what they thought was going on in that house. Sometimes the story will be me and him. Sometimes it will be me and all of them. And I didn't hear this for a long time. So I kept going there. Maybe if the story had come to me earlier, maybe if it had come to my father, if someone had talked to my mother when she was visiting, maybe I would have, okay, no. But this, was happening for a while and I didn't know where the stories were coming from. And when I look back now, I have to look back in Thanksgiving that nothing happened. Like I could have been raped in that house. Like 4 men lived in that house. 4 of them were not always in the house at the same time, but I was always in that house. And the stories were always vicious. And most of the stories were coming from the hospital. Because sometimes someone will tell me what they've heard and there's always one nurse or the other. Then one day I went to the hospital and I was just walking through and then I looked out one window and I was looking straight at the door of that house that I used to go to. Then it made sense that most of the gist was coming from the hospital. My father also worked in that hospital. They meant well. They would have told him. And, because I thought it was innocent, I used to go with my bicycle and park it in front of I don't have a sneaky bone in my body. So anything I'm doing, I usually do where everybody sees it because I'm not sneaky. So I didn't even think it was a thing until all this thing was just, and it was only when I'm on holiday, I go there. But eventually, like I think in the next year, so by the next year, he had started becoming touchy and trying to kiss and starting to ask for more, which was getting uncomfortable. So I also was starting to go less to the house and talk on the phone and those kind of things. And how did this whole situation end? Okay, eventually, his manager invited me to the house, the Lebanese guy, for a meeting. So apparently back home, they found him a wife in India. And that wife's family, they lived in Russia. So they were ordering him to come back, get married, so that they can arrange his papers so that he can move to Russia with the wife's family or something like that. So the manager felt he needed to be around to just tell it to me so that I don't make a fuss in a way that their company comes into trouble and all of those kind of things, right? But I was like, no problem. It's okay. I mean, I was 14 or 15. No, I was like 15 then, going to 16. So I wasn't thinking marriage or anything, right? So, no, go and marry. So I think also the man just transferred him. So after this whole marriage thing, he left the island. So I didn't see him again. We sent a few emails here and there, and then things kind of tapped out. So you can see there's a process. Some of them are very patient. Some of them are more forward. Some of them commit rape. Some of them slowly. Yes. So grooming of children, there's no one method, but with each attempt, defenses are falling. People are learning, they're relearning, they're teaching each other how far they can go. So this is one of the stories, and I have another one for today. And then, so this story, the next one I'm going to tell, I'm going to call it Frying Pan, because the story that I will tell you next week is the fire. So in 2003, when I was 17, around my WAEC days, like WAEC is the exam you write to go into the university. So around this period, there was a Frenchman that was on my case, big time. But before he became on my case, I used to see him in church. He was Catholic. So at this point, all these foreigners were now starting to attempt it, because by this time, all the Nigerians were talking dirty. Like they were the ones now feeding these people, like, okay, go and try your luck. It was crazy. So he used to come to church. We're all Catholics. He used to always sit with a black girl, a Nigerian girl, who was I think she was a youth corper. And so I think they were together. So they were always sitting in front in church. I didn't interact with him at all. Then eventually, I stopped seeing that girl. So when he now eventually started talking to me, I asked her, but I said, I thought you had a girlfriend. Where is she? And then he told me he was in love. That's what he said. He was really in love with the girl. So he had taken a few of the people who worked with him, some Nigerians who worked with him, to go to the girl's village in Rivers State to ask to marry the girl. The girl's father declined, insisted that in their community, first daughters don't marry out. And then they begged, tried to persuade the man, and he chased them with cutlass. That's a story he told me, but someone else told me the same story. I think someone that went on this expedition to marry the girl. Because I was a child, if he was telling this story to adult me, I would have been like, wow, and you bounce back this quickly. You should be nursing your heartbreak longer or something. But I was a child, and he was so gentle, and he was giving me all these French pet names and speaking French to me. Mon chéri, ma chérie, blah, blah, blah. It was stupid. But he was calling my house, and there was something, I don't know why, but there was something that was making me skeptical. So, and I had exams, but he was like, no, go back to school. And I didn't have a cell phone, but he gave me his cell phone number and said, just find someone who has a phone. I'll be calling you when you're in school. So when I got back to school, I think about 2 people in my set had phones, and calling was expensive. We had only MTN in Nigeria at the time, and it was 50 naira per minute. So if your call is even 1 second, you will lose 50 naira. So of course, nobody's going to let you be making calls from their phone. And then you know what he did? So once I flashed him, and he told the owner of the phone that he would be giving the lady credit if I'm allowed to use the phone. So this is how it became a nightly activity, that he'll be calling me and speaking French to me. And this went on, and I liked it. I liked the attention. I liked this whole not telling me all my past sins and trying to shame me into agreeing, which was the attitude some of the Nigerian men were taking. So I liked this whole, someone thinks I'm an angel. Someone thinks I'm bijou, jewelry. Someone thinks I'm this and this, and he'll be like, what is my heart in Igbo? I'll say Obim. He'll not say, I'm your Obim. And he was learning small Igbo from me. And it was kind of cute to me as a child. It was fascinating. It was different from any way anybody had ever treated me up to that point. Because now I have reflected, like, how did this happen? How did this get this far? Because in reflection, you can see things that you didn't see when it was happening to you. So this call thing kept happening. I finished WAEC. I finished NECO. Of course, I think I informed him the day that I was coming back to Bonny. So I arrived at the jetty in Port Harcourt. He had called several times because, of course, to get there, you have to leave school, travel to Port Harcourt, then get to the jetty. He had called, I don't know why he did that. He kept calling the extension of the jetty to ask if I had arrived. Bonny, maybe he didn't know how gossipy they are. But by the time I got to the jetty and someone handed me a piece of paper, please call this Frenchman before our phone will die. He has been calling, asking if you've arrived safely, blah, blah, blah. And the gossip started. All of a sudden, I had been shipped to this man that hadn't even agreed to date. Because I don't know what he was thinking. Because I was a child, he should have known better. Like as an adult, if I was like already in my 20s and it wasn't cell phone era and someone called this many times, if I arrived, I would have felt flattered, loved, pampered, whatever. But this was not good for me at all. So by the time I arrived at jetty, it was now national news on the camp that this man, me and this man. So I called him anyway from the extension. We talked. I got back to Bonny, and it was now always, when will you visit me? When will you visit me? Most of the relationship was on the phone. Then I visited him. All this cheese and chocolate and French, talk, trying to touch me here, touch me there, blah, blah, blah. I no agree. I went back, and then he kept calling me, talking to me, saying nice things for a while. Then one Saturday morning, I now climbed my bicycle to go and surprise my boyfriend, to go and surprise him, to go and agree. I climbed bicycle. I didn't inform him. I rode my bicycle to his house. I rang the doorbell with confidence. I don't know, those that live in Bonny know that most of those houses had glass windows. So as I was ringing the bell, I saw a shadow of a woman walk past. I identified her as that girl he was trying to marry. And then I see him running to the door like a scared rat. And then he came, opened the door, that I should go. He will call me, he'll call me, he'll call me. I was so upset, so angry, so heartbroken. And this is how, my friends, I jumped from frying pan to fire. Next week, I will tell you about the fire. I hope this stories is because some of you will have teenage daughters who will think they're in love. You will try everything you can to get them straight. So it's better that you have a line of communication, that you're open. So all this old school parenting where you were perfect as a child, you didn't talk to boys, you didn't talk to men, I think I will strongly suggest that you drop it and be more honest in a way that, okay, people talked to you, but this is how you did it, that you can relate to what your child is going through so they don't feel their feeling when they talk to you. Because if you keep projecting this image of how perfect you were and you refuse to relate to what they're telling you, they will not tell you. And the person that they decide to tell might not be safe. And I know what I'm saying because I'm seeing a lot of people. I have a lot of older friends. So they're at that stage where they're struggling with the boyfriend that their daughters have, they don't like, or the friends that they want to keep. And that they don't have the words because they have been perfect for so long. And now they don't know how to calm down and say, okay, I understand what you're saying. This is how men do it, or this is how men do it. So this is just for education. It's not entertainment. It's not gist. I'm not calling any names. It's just to tell you how these things happen, and so that we're more conscious and more aware in how we parent, and going forward, how things will happen. So children should not have to manage adult emotions, adult rumors, or adult insecurity. When they do, something has already gone very wrong. I hope you've learned something this weekend, and I'll see you again next week where we discuss the fire. Have a good evening.